Hello, friends. Good afternoon, and you are welcome to today's live session. And all of you can see that small glee on my face, that smile on my face. And this smile is because of the choice of today's topic. And today's topic is how do you seduce your customer? So, when I spoke about this topic for the first time, how do you seduce your customer? I really got some reviews from people that, hey Sanjay, are you trying to bring sex into sales? Well, no, I'm not really trying to bring sex into sales. But seduction is not only about sex. Seduction is an act, right? Now, if you understand seduction, then I'm sure you would understand what I mean by how do you seduce your customer, right? Now, when we talk about seducing one's customer, what are we trying to do? We are trying to entice the customer, or we are trying to rope in the customer. Are we trying to hoodwink the customer, or are we just trying to flatter the customer? Now, for those of you who feel that our job is to hoodwink the customer, you're absolutely wrong. Our job is not to trick the customer. But when we say that, how do you seduce your customer? What we are trying to say is, how do you entice your customer to be talking to you, to enjoy the act of talking to you, to enjoy the act of interacting with you, discussing with you, to enjoy this whole sales process with you? That's the end result that seduction will give you. And in today's program, we will talk about how really can you seduce your customer. And those of you who are thinking it in a negative way, please change your mindset. We are very much on the topic. How do you seduce your customer in sales is what we are trying to talk about. My tip number one, and I'm going to share some tips with you. My tip number one is look into the eyes of the customer while talking to the customer. Do not look away from the customer. Always look into eye to eye. That eye to eye contact is very important. That's the first step of seduction. That's the first step of how you will seduce your customer. Look into the eyes. Talk confidently, look into the eyes, talk straight, talk as a matter of fact. Now, the second tip to seduce your customer is entice the customer to talk. Many of us in sales are busy talking. Many of us in sales feel that the more we talk, the more knowledgeable we are. Or we feel that the more glib talking we are doing, the more we are impressing our customers. According to me, this is all nonsense. It doesn't work like that. Your job is to make the customer talk. Your job is to ensure that the customer feels like talking to you. If not, the process of seduction has not even started. So, we are your social NGP, Ronnie Bang. You're all welcome to today's program. We are discussing today on the art of seducing your customer in sales. And we are on our topic number two, which says that entice the customer to talk. Do not end up talking yourself. Ask the right questions and entice the customer to talk. How much the customer loves like talking, how much the customer feels like talking to you will all depend on the quality of questions that you ask and the body language and voice modulation with which you ask your questions. If you have done your body language voice modulation well, and if you have chosen your questions well, I'm sure the customer will feel like talking to you, answering your question. Sachin Pathak, you're welcome to today's program. Hello for you. So, step number one was look into the eyes of the customer and talk. That's the first step for seduction. Step number two, entice the customer to talk by asking the right questions. Okay, so you ask the right questions, you will entice the customer to talk. Step number three, focus on what excites the customer and not yourself. Now, this is a very, very important element of seducing anyone in the world. You want to seduce anyone in the world, you must focus on what excites that person and not on what excites you. Correct? So you are trying to seduce your customer. Focus on what excites the customer, not on what excites you. So, what excites the seller? Just getting an order excites the seller. Getting an order at a good price excites the seller. Getting incentivized for his order excites him. Talking about his own problems excites him. So if the seller wants to talk, he says that, hey, I don't have a transport, or hey, I have a manufacturing issue, or hey, my plant is full, so I'll be able to deliver your goods late. These are the problems of the seller. And many a times the seller finds it exciting to express his problems. But the rule number 3 of seduction says that focus on what excites the customer and not yourself. So let us quickly relate. I can have Zain Khan, S. Sheen, you're all welcome to today's program. So let's understand what all excites a customer. The problems of the customer excites the customer. He feels excited to talk about his problems. The customer feels excited to talk about solutions which leads to better working at his side, which could be productivity, performance, waste management, threshold, production. It could be higher yield. It could be a better selling price for his end product. So these are certain things which excites the customer. Now, if you're trying to seduce the customer, always your narrative of your discussion should revolve around the customer's pain point and not around your pain point. If you do that, you're very much marching ahead on your art of seducing your customers. Now coming to the next point, which is that's my point number 4. Do not be in a rush to close the order. Do not be in a rush to close the order. I have seen a lot of salespeople immediately jumping to the point that, sir, this is a good product, why don't you buy it? I said, do not be in a rush to close the order. Foreplay enough to allow your concept to sink in the customer's mind. Now, when I'm using the word foreplay, don't take me wrong. What I'm trying to say is that before you talk about a sales order with the customer, you should have engaged enough with the customer so that the concept that your product represents sinks well in the customer's mind. Now, every product has a concept. So if I'm selling a iPhone 14, I'm not only selling the phone features, but I'm also selling a premium camera and I'm selling premium internet facilities, right? So the concept behind the product is very important. It is important for the seller to invest enough time with the customer so that the concept behind the product sinks in the customer's mind. That's very important. So Om Badyani, you're welcome to today's program. Thank you very much. I'm on my tip number 4, and we are discussing about the art of seducing a customer. Okay. Now, do not be in a rush to close the order. Foreplay enough to allow your concept to sink in the customer's mind. Great. Please feel free to put your questions in the comment box because I know that today's topic is debatable and I'm ready to take your questions. Coming down to tip number 5. Tip number 5 on how do you seduce your customer in sales. So, tip number 5 is bagging a sales order is just one of the 10 acts of selling. That's very important. Bagging a sales order is just one of the 10 acts of selling. So, what are the 10 acts? So, the acts of sales starts from suspecting, prospecting, pitching, need analysis, objection handling, proposing, follow up, closing, negotiation, and then finally order. Now, if you want to seduce your customer, you have to go through each one of the 10 steps one by one. I mean, you cannot seduce your customer by jumping straight away from step number 1 to step number 10. And I see so many sellers doing this. They just go introduce the product and straight away start talking about order. It doesn't work like that. So you must be aware of all the 10 acts, number 1. You must know how to deliver the 10 act, and you must deliver each of those acts one by one to be able to move to act number 10, which is asking for the order. Okay, so let's move on to tip number 6. The tip number 6 is keep on delivering value bombs to your customer. when you're following up for an order. Keep on delivering value bombs. You see, as a seller, every time you follow up with a customer, you cannot be begging for the order. I mean, if you do that, you cannot be in the act of seducing the customer, right? You can become a beggar, so you can get into the act of begging with the customer. If you want to get in the act of seducing your customers, keep on delivering value bombs. Every time you follow up with a customer, deliver a value bomb. If for those of you who do not understand what is a value bomb, check up on my videos which I have made on value bombs earlier, so that you know how to make a value bomb, what is a value bomb, and how do you deliver a value bomb. All right. So that's my tip number 6. Moving on to tip number 7. Do not be in a rush to leave the customer after closing the order. Now, that's very important for someone who's trying to seduce the customer, because for those of you who feel that the act of seducing the customer stops by the time you have got an order, you're mistaken. No, this act doesn't stop here. You still have to work towards the next order, and the process of seduction for the next order starts the moment you have closed the first order. So do not be in a rush to leave the customer after closing the order. That's very nascent of you. All right. So that's my tip number 7. And my tip number 8 is always keep in touch with the customer no matter what. You want to seduce your customer, always stay in touch with the customer no matter what. No matter whether you have lost the order, whether you have got the order, whether the customer is complaining, it does not matter. What is important is you're in the game, and no seduction is final. One seduction leads to another and yet another. So get geared up for the next one. Always keep in touch with the customer no matter what. So as I come towards the end of my today's live session, what is very important for you to understand is seduction leads to romance. Okay. For those of you who feel that you can purchase romance from the market, I'm sure you understand that you're wrong. So seduction will lead to romance, and this in turn leads to everlasting relationship with the customer. So seduction will lead to romance, and romance will lead to an everlasting relationship with the customer. And that's the way to go, guys. So those are the 9 points which I discussed with you, the 8 points, I'm sorry, which I discussed with you as part of building up the art of seducing the customer. I can see Pankaj 10x has joined just now. Pankaj, you're slightly late for today's program. We are just about finishing. So, friends, as we come towards the end of today's program, thank you so much for joining me today. The objective of this live session is to introduce new concepts on sales and business development to all of you who are trying to make a career out of sales. Please feel free to put a post your questions on all the social media platforms: LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, so that I could get back to you, because I'm on a very strong mission of empowering 1 million salespersons with the science of selling before 2025. So help me connect to other salespeople. Those are my credentials on the screen, my email ID, and my personal mobile number. Feel free to reach out to me with your questions, and I would love to answer them for you. For those of you who joined me late, I'm just taking you through all the 10 points once again so that you're able to revise. So, my tip number 1 is look into the eyes of the customer and talk. If you really want to seduce your customers, tip number 2, entice the customer to talk. And to do this, learn how to ask the right questions and listen to the customer when he answers your questions. Tip number 3, focus on what excites the customer and not you. So always focus on what excites the customer and not yourself. Tip number 4, do not be in a rush to close the order. Foreplay enough to allow your concept to sink in customers' mind. Very important. I hope all of you understand this. The next point is bagging a sales order is just one of the 10 acts of selling. So you should know what are the 10 acts of selling, which is suspecting, prospecting, pitching, need analysis, objection handling, proposing, follow up, closing, negotiation, and order. And you really want to seduce the customer, don't jump any step, go step by step and take it till the end. Okay, my tip number 6 is keep on delivering value bombs to your customer when you're following up for an order. Don't follow up like a beggar. Each time you go to follow up with a value bomb. My tip number 7 is do not be in a rush to leave the customer after closing the order. Engage the customer, talk to him, and start the seduction process for the next order. And always keep in touch. That's tip number 8. Always keep in touch with the customer no matter what. No matter what, right? Whether you've got the order, whether you've lost the order, or whether you've got a complaint, always keep in touch with the customer. And towards the end of the program, seduction leads to romance, which in turn leads to everlasting relationship with the customer. So, on that note, I thank all of you friends for having joined me in this live session, and I look forward to yet another live at 1:30 p.m. tomorrow. Till I meet you again tomorrow, this is Sanjay Singh, your sales coach, saying bye bye.